Welcome to the Draftstars AFL show with Smatho and Tom.
Well, with thanks to Daily Fantasy Rankings, your number one resource for AFL Daily Fantasy, plus Draftstars, Australia's number one Daily Fantasy destination for your DFS AFL. I'm Smatho, there's my carry guy. Tom is back for another edition of the Draftstars AFL show for round 4. We'll be previewing the Power and the Demons. Poor Rudy is currently homeless at the moment. He's had some issues moving house and he can't get in front of a camera to say good day to us. So I've been listed to our main man at DFR. Here's Tom. How are you this evening, mate?
Good, Smatho. Also homeless, but found another location this week. So hopefully the hotspot holds up for us and we get through the show. Thanks for having me.
Yes, that's not a problem. Thank you for the late call up once again. And also, speaking of late call ups, I think there's a little bit of where your sideburns gone.
Yeah, very fresh haircut, but change is as good as a holiday, so that's what we're going for. Oh,
it is very fresh, very fresh. Look, that's it. Thank you. Thanks for all the viewers who are tuning in either live on the stream there on Facebook or YouTube or even on the Twitter app on Draftstars. Thank you for hosting for us. If you're watching on the replay or listening on the podcast, welcome to you guys as well. Going to be a huge game here, $100,000 prize pool up for grabs. But before we talk some AFL, we've got a little bit of business to attend to here, Tom. So the first one I want to ask you before we talk footy, there's another little tournament called the Masters coming up on Thursday night here. I think there's a couple of people who like to get a little bit excited, go see guys hit a white ball around on a practice range. You can watch it on TV if you like as well, but you're one of the main guys here at DFR for Golf DFS. $20,000 pool is available for the Masters competition. Without going into too much detail, because you can get all these stuff there on dailyfantasyrankings.com.au, some little sneaky tips for the Masters, mate.
Yeah, very excited about the Masters, as always. I'll be watching a lot of shots, but as we know, golf is very unpredictable. So who have I written up this week? Let me have a quick look. So very keen on Patrick Cantlay this week. He's a little bit too cheap there on Draftstars. And Mark Leishman is my Aussie pick for the week. I think it's going to get pretty windy, some pretty wild weather, and he's the bloke who can handle that. So there's a couple, and looking forward to watching Tiger, but not sure it's a good fantasy play.
Oh, man, the Tiger Mania is back. You want to hope he goes well, but as a fantasy player, I'm sure you're not really thinking about Tiger this week.
Yeah, I don't want to put myself through that, watching him limp around the course for 4 days, so not expecting too much there.
Not expecting too much, but what we are expecting is my next item on the agenda here, and there's a little thing that just dropped a little bit earlier today, and I think our man here, Andrew, knows about what we're going on here. The Draftstars AFL live final was launched just before we went on the stream this evening here, Tom. There's the logo, and look, can you say how much prize money will be up in the kitty this year?
That is massive, isn't it? I haven't had a good look at it just yet, but yeah, that is very exciting to see that.
$500,000 live final for the Draftstars AFL live final. It's back for 2022. Obviously, last year we had all the intentions of running a massive event, but obviously a few things got in the way. We hosted what we thought was a pretty good live virtual event, and obviously we had some great winners from last season. So I'm looking forward to catching up with the golden ticket winners into the live final itself. $150,000 is the first prize. If you need more details, get to draftstars.com.au for all the details that you need for this year's live final. It's going to be front and center for the next 4 months. So, as always, 18 plus, gamble responsibly. Gamblers help, etc., etc. I'll have to quickly say that. And just like me, I'll be looking forward to the event itself. Now, Tom, were you involved in the event last year, Tom?
Yeah, I was in there, got a couple of tickets, one of them via Origin. I think I was coming third at halftime. I got a bit too excited and then tailed off after that.
Oh, excellent,
But,
excellent.
yeah,
Well, hopefully,
sorry,
well,
I was going to
you've
say we
got.
had the Masters qualifier this week, and obviously a lot of AFL qualifiers. Hopefully, some rugby league qualifiers coming up. So plenty of action.
Might be able to cater to different needs for our customers here at Draftstars. So you just make sure that you get to draftstars.com.au. Just make sure when the qualifiers are up that you're make sure you're aware of what we are offering this season. Now, before we get stuck into the game, Tom, we have to look at back last week. Obviously, your first show for AFL, you were pretty keen on some plays, and obviously there's some plays that you didn't really get around to. So how did we go last week?
We have to look back at it. I don't think it went too well. It's pretty keen on McRae. He gave us like a dirty 75 or something. I don't think we mentioned Lockie Hunter at all. Pumped out 112 at a pretty good price there. Obviously, Tim English, Josh Dunkley, they went as well as everyone expected them to. And I think probably our success stories were Nick Blakey and Buddy, who got like 95 in the end. We were pretty keen on the Swans key forwards, so not too bad, but yeah, not great.
Room for improvement is what you're trying to say.
That's
You've learned from last week. We get the demons again. This time we've got Port. Let's bring up the teams. Only change from each side. Obviously, Tom Cleary comes in for Sam Skinner, who's been omitted. Obviously, Martin Frederick was the sub last week. Jake Lever is a big in for the Demons. He comes in for Joel Smith, who's actually under protocols. And obviously, Tony Bedford is also the sub last week there. So I don't see too relevant changes here for fantasy-wise. Would you agree?
Yeah, like for like changes, key defenders. The only thing I can really pick out of it is that it's probably an upgrade in the key defenders, so might hurt the opposing key forwards a little bit, but that's about it. Nothing too major.
All right, let's get stuck in the game. So Power at home at Adelaide Oval, taking on the D's. It's a 7:40 Australian Eastern Standard Time start now. The daylight savings is done, so you don't have to worry about whereabouts in the country. You should be able to figure out when the footy starts at your neck of the woods. Fine conditions are at the Adelaide Oval, so we don't have to worry about the weather for Thursday night. $100,000 prize pool available on Draftstars with a 9,700 first prize. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there with the big cash money here. Let's have a look at the contest itself. Overall strategy, mate. Obviously, these two sides, if you go back to last year, were pretty fantasy, stingy kind of teams, but then also can go large themselves. So the early data could suggest that we're going the same way. These guys like to score heavily and restrict fantasy points. But one team is 3-0, and the other one is 0-3. So what's your mindset here?
Yeah, that's the big thing. Obviously, how they've started the season quite opposite, but I think given there's not many changes in the teams, means there's not a lot of like safe value on the slate. So that kind of lends itself to going as balanced as we can with the guys who've kind of gotten off to a good start of the season, the mid prices. Or, we can take a risk on a couple of the unproven guys down the bottom or the guys who haven't gotten off to great starts if we want to try and jam in 2 or 3 of the top guys. So, yeah, I think both those are very legitimate ways to play it. Just depends if you think things are going to swing a bit and Port comes into the game. Some of the underperformers might get back on track kind of thing.
I've noticed some trends pretty early this season already in terms of what Draftstars users have been doing their lineups. Is there a lot of stacking going on, especially in this single game format? Is that something you're going to be considering here for this game?
You always have to consider it. Given these are, if we go off last year's form, these are 2 of the best teams. So we should be looking at a close game where a mixed lineup might be fine. But I think if you're playing a lot of lineups, it's a good idea to stack both ways. Obviously, Demon stack is what we're expecting, but Port are a good team, so a Port stack could be the play tonight as well, tomorrow night.
All right, let's launch in some positions. And honestly, just the three options here for the ruckman to start with. Max Gawn's at 15,790 to start with, but he's got a little form average here of 86.3 to start the season. Lysette is in the middle there at 12,130, and then Luke Jackson there with a form of 81 fantasy points per game at 10,640. Obviously, Jackson is a forward eligible player as well. So just the three this time, Tom. What are your thoughts here?
Starting with Gawn, I had a look through the last season's numbers before, and I found a couple of little 3-game runs where he averaged under 100. And then he sort of followed those up with your 120s, 130s. So I'm definitely not writing him off. He's Max Gawn. He's not gotten any worse at footy. So definitely, pretty keen to play him tonight as well. Keep saying tonight. It's tomorrow night. Obviously Lysette, he's done well the last 2 weeks going solo. But both times it was against another solo ruck. Round one, he got smashed by McInerney and Fort against the Lions. So against the best ruck combo in the AFL, I'm a bit worried about that, I'd say. So might be a bit more round one than what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Obviously Jackson's killing it. So I'm probably leaning towards the Demons pair. Just depends if you think Jackson's the new guy there or if Gawn's going to bounce back, which one you put in front.
Considering double rack stack with obviously Gawn and Jackson?
Yeah, doable. I'd have to look and see how often last year they both went well. I kind of feel like there should be a bit of, they don't correlate too well. Doable, I think, but it's probably not what I'm going to try and force in there.
And what Tom will be doing here, we're hitting the ruck analysis tool on the Daily Fantasy Rankings website to check that data out from 2021 straight after the show, won't you, Tom?
That sounds like the right thing to do, yes.
What a plug. Yeah. All right, let's move on to defence. Now, also the early data on Daily Fantasy Rankings, so I actually had a little quick look today, shows that both teams are actually really stingy when it comes to defender opposition fantasy points. So I think they're around the 16th, 17th, 18th in the league, these both two teams. So it kind of suggests in my head maybe paying up for the defenders might be a bad idea and looking for some cheap value. But Angus Brayshaw at the top there at 14,670 after his 20 marks last week. Sure, we won't be seeing that again.
Wow. He looked very good. So maybe the team's going to try and recreate that, but there'll be less space, obviously, against a better team. How popular do you think he's going to be?
I reckon he'll gain probably 30+ percentage. In the defender spot. I think you'd be a bit of a waste in the midfielders. Obviously, we're stacked midfielders from both teams, but if he's going to play that Jake Lloyd short, even Basher Hooley back in the day kind of style of footy, 14.6, you want to hope that he replicates them. But Brayshaw is not well, those numbers are really good. Hard to ignore.
Yeah, he's in good nick. So I think I wouldn't totally fade him, but I'm not too keen. Obviously, he's got that benefit from Salem being out. And so have Bowie, May, and even Trent Rivers have had 2 pretty good weeks since Salem went down. So I think that's the play at the back. That's where the value is in those 4 who have stepped up without Salem. I'd probably put the other 3 above Brayshaw just because of the price, but that looks to be the play. All the Port guys can get it done, but it's a real tough matchup. None of them are, they're all priced up reasonably, so I'd just be sprinkling them through at best kind of thing.
Okay. So let's go below Ryan Burton there, who's just at 10,530. I'll see Jake Bowie has been the surprise packet, would say, from a fantasy point of view overall. I'm sure Demon fans like Rudy himself saying, no, he was expecting this kind of play from this particular player. 10,160, is he going to be on your radar?
Oh, definitely. My note from last season, I think when he was drafted, was kind of Caleb Daniel mold.
Yep.
And I ignored that and missed his 125. But, yeah, he's that kind of player. He's keen to get the ball. He uses it well. Pretty busy. Yeah, I've seen him get knocked around a couple of times, so that's a bit of a worry. But maybe he needs to get the helmet on and really following Caleb Daniel's footsteps.
Now, the return of Jake Lever, does that affect Stephen May at all? In terms of, because obviously the Port forwards are quite tall, but first game for Lever this year, we know that Stephen May's that interceptor, producer down back. Any issues that if you're looking at Stephen May with Lever?
Not too sure, but personally I'd say I won't be considering that too much. Like, he's getting a lot of his points from kick-ins and just chipping it around a bit in the back line. Like, they're happy to give him the ball with his big boots. So I don't think the intercepting has played a big part in his scoring so far this season. So whether that changes or not, I don't think it should bother him too much.
Now, I alluded in my little intro here that both teams are pretty stingy, and that probably suggests to pay down for guys who might be able to grind out a score worth of value. I've scrolled down the bottom of the page here, so we've got Trent Rivers at 8.3, Tomlinson at 8.3, Cleary for his first game at 8.1, Jaden Hunt 8,000, then Jones and McKenzie in the 7K range. Any of these half dozen down the bottom take any interest?
The ones on the screen, I'm taking Rivers for sure. He's more of the accumulator than the rest, although he can get a lockdown role, but I think he's getting a bit of ball. McKenzie catches the eye a bit, but he has been banged up this season. But he's just that guy who sometimes team can put the ball in his hands just to really get it as far down the field as possible. So maybe in a tough matchup, there's a bit of that going on, but I wouldn't feel too good about it.
Okay. Rivers is the boy. All right, let's move on to the mids. And also, look at these rolled gold standard guys you'd be able to choose from here. So Petrarca leads them all at 17,650. Just behind is Travis Boak, who's actually had a ripping start of the year, fantasy-wise, with a $17,480 price tag. And then obviously you got the old nighttime wines at 16,830, and then Oliver's there at 16,470. So, like any of these single slates, you can probably afford two at best if you play your cards right. Out of that top four, where are you staking the flag there for us?
I'm worried about Petrarca. He got done by McGrath with a tag last week. Maybe Port does something similar. Maybe Drew goes to him this week. Maybe not a full tag, but at least something to slow him down a bit. Obviously, Boak's been smashing it, but he's 33 years old. He usually doesn't have that much of a ceiling. So with that massive price tag, probably not that keen on him either. So that leaves me with Wines and Oliver as the two bulls in the big game. They're kind of the types that I'm looking for, I think.
I recall Oliver having a really great couple of games in Adelaide last year, so I do believe he likes playing under lights at Adelaide Oval. So obviously Ollie Wines and Clayton Oliver are your two kind of picks there. As we go down, obviously Carl Amon could be left behind there at 15,030. He's coming off a 98 and 148, also another 98 there, so he could go a little bit under own, being that outside kind of mid player for the power. Look at this mid-tier, Viney, Neil Bullen, Houston, Riley Bonner. They look overpriced. Do you think so?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I wouldn't say that about Houston. Maybe like he already smashed out a 150 this year and kind of have to respect that ceiling, even though I think he's had a hamstring since then. And yeah, he's a bit of a worry with what role he'll play, but got to respect the ceiling. So fair enough price on him, but the rest of them, yeah, it's pretty hard to get there without much value on the slate.
Zach Butters is an interesting one. He's only a mid only now at 12,050 after obviously having a big game in round 2. Egg Langdon, 104 last week, and obviously an 82 there in round 2. He's only at 11,820. I guess he'll be in a lot of teams. What do you think?
Mate, yeah, I'm not sure if he will be or not, but I'm pretty he looked really busy last week, and he's a guy I always play a lot of. Doesn't often work out, but yeah, if you think he can get a bit of space on the wing, he obviously runs the full length of the ground and is keen to get the ball, so there's plenty of +6s there if he can find a bit of space. And yeah, we saw last week 100+ ceiling. He did it quite a bit last year, so definitely very much in play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a look towards the bottom here. Also, the two 6K guys. I want to touch on them first. Jackson Mead, 6,000. Jed McIntyre at 6,000 as well. Any interest in those guys?
Yeah, a little bit. I think Mead got some CBAs last week. So he's probably the one I'd lean towards. But yeah, a 60 on this slate like you got last week might be more than enough if it lets you fit in a couple of the big guys. And I don't know much about McIntyre, but I think he's playing forward, so I think he's rated pretty highly. So maybe in your port stacks, he might be an option.
And just finally, before we move on, there is a low mid-ish tier here of Power Pepper at 8.6, James Jordan at 8.6, and Tom Sparrow at 9,000. You can obviously chuck in Drew there at 10,000 as well. Do you think that, if some people will go to Mead instead and try and save money, will these guys above him, you can try and catch at low ownership, possibly?
Yeah, possibly. Yep, I mean, especially with 4 of them there, it should be pretty spread out. Yeah, I quite like Jordan. I think he's always underrated. He's got it done so far this year. Obviously, the price has crept up a bit, but still pretty good for what he's pumped out when he hasn't been the sub. So I like that. I never really trust Sparrow that much, but Power Pepper's been getting some CBAs. Drew, if he's tagging a tracker, he'll be getting CBAs, so he'll be around the ball at least. Yeah, maybe not a lot of ceiling in that group, but we may not need it on this slate. So I think there's Jordan, Drew, Power Pepper, maybe in that order. Yep.
All right, let's move on to the forward line. Now, I think we could possibly attack the forward line for the Demons here due to the fact that the Power's been given up a fair lot of fancy points. If Adelaide can kick a score on them last week and they haven't simply won a game yet, I think we can lean on Melbourne options. Not saying that the Port options are crap. They're just Melbourne are on a roll, and you can tell by their fantasy scores as well. So the top of the board here, obviously Alex Neil-Bullen is pretty pricey there at 13,030. Obviously, he didn't do much last week, just there with 36, but obviously his first 2 games were a good start of the year. Could that be a little sneaky low ownership play at a high price tag, but in a matchup that you could smash?
Yeah, it's one of those ones that doesn't feel good at that price, and maybe that's a reason to lean into it in a GPP, but it would kind of require everyone else bombing out in the forward line at the cheaper prices, but I mean, yeah, it's a tough game, so maybe that's what happens. Definitely worth trying to get over the field on him without going too nuts, I think.
Yeah, there's also a $3,000 price difference between him and Jackson that we've already talked about. Bailey Fritsch is there at 10,440. Hasn't really got going as yet with a 63, his highest score last week. Connor Rose is another one who hasn't actually got going, and he's become a bit of the scapegoat of the Powers lack of form to start with. He's only at 9,150 and just a forward only as well. So he could find himself with a low ownership percentage against his name. And then we just got the cheaper stuff down below 9K, which is like Spargo, Georgiades, Marshall, Motlop, Wilderman, and things like that. So out of this lot, what were we looking at here?
Oh, God. Yeah, just toss a coin a bunch of times in that group, I think. Well, like I said, Pal Pepper's in the mids, Sparrow's in the mids, so there's a bit more safety there. Yeah, otherwise you just have to close your eyes with all those key forwards and Motlop even. Like, I think he's basically like an undersized key forward the way he plays a lot of the time. He's not getting up the ground too much, so yeah, pretty hard to swallow that. But thankfully, there's some slightly better options down below.
All right, let's have a look down below. Kaiser Pickett's there at 7,070. Tom McDonald, he's probably the one that gains most people's attention there at 6,760. Scores are 40, 41, and 48 to start with. But sounds like he's going to make a few teams. Why is this?
Well, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't with 3 scores in the 40. I don't know. Can people look past that? But, yeah, I mean, last year he averaged like mid-70s or something. I mean, I think he's maybe not getting up the ground as much, but that doesn't feel like something that's going to last forever. So at some point he's going to get back to better scoring than this at least, and that is a big price drop. So that just looks like, buy low to me. Yeah, and a little bit the same with Pickett, but he doesn't quite have the same scoring pedigree. So I think they're both very much in play. And then, Sam Mays, he's also playing as a pure forward basically, but yeah, he might still jag 60 odd, and that might be enough. So I think he's in play as well.
Interesting forward line, this one.
It's not great.
It's not great. Not great. And having Neil Bullen teasing you at 13,000 saying, come on, pay up for me instead. It's, yeah. Some tough questions you have to ask yourself, especially if you want to snag one of these little golden tickets to start with. You have to know these 2 players up front. All right, Tom, let's build out your team of the week. Let's get back to the rucks here. Who you got to start with?
Yeah, well, I said I was keen on the Gorn bounce back, so I'll start there.
All right, so bounce back. So you want 115 plus, don't you?
Well, it just depends. Like, I think Lysette could get crushed. Maybe Jackson only gives us like 60 this week. So in that case, it might just be like 100 plus from Gorn is all right.
Okay. Who's your defence?
Yep. So I said I'm leaning into the Demons without Salem. So I'm going Bowie and Stephen May. They're together. I think, the team wants them getting the ball, so they look like Bowie to me.
Okay. Yeah, no issues there. And in the mids, who are you going here?
We're going to pay up twice with Wines and Oliver, as we said. Should be up for it on the big stage. And then James Jordan, he's the value play that seems to just find the ball no matter what's going on. And, Jackson Mead as minimum price CBAs. So
Not a problem there. And then also your filthy forwards. Who have you plucked out here?
Yeah, well, Tom McDonald, obviously. Yep. Big buy low, as I said. And then salary leaves us, with we're not playing Rosie, so we'll just go Tom Sparrow. He's playing in the mids as well, so don't love that one, but sometimes you just got to take what's left over.
Yeah, you do have to take what's left over. It's nearly a classic Melbourne stack there, but also you're just having some ceiling of Ollie Wines. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind that team at all. Make sure you get little screenshots. Pause the video. get on the Draftstars app and just have a look around the various options and contests available for this week. All right, so that wraps up another edition of the Draftstars AFL show. It's been a big day. It's especially a big day for me. It's been a long couple of months trying to get this live final up and going. So, like I say, good luck to everyone who will be entering the contest throughout the next 3 or 4 months. So good luck to you. Gamble responsibly as always. I want to thank you again, Tom, for jumping in real late again to fill the void for Rudy. Hopefully he'll be back next week for round 5. Make sure you check out Tom's work on Daily Fantasy Rankings. You'll be able to find his Masters preview, his Rugby League preview, and if he gets a chance, he might chuck some AFL up as well. But obviously we've got the gurus there as well for all your needs. So that's dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. Thank you very much, Tom, for your services this evening.
No worries. Just while I'm here, I want to give a quick shout out to Nicky Boy, who asked for some NRL advice last weekend and then went on to absolutely dominate the NRL action. So did quite well. But, yep, no more advice from me. Thanks for having me. That's good.
Just we'll stick to AFL and see how he goes there. I mean, he'd come back to you saying you're a legend. But no, good stuff, Nicky boys. Well done to you, mate. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much. Like out on the way out, share. Make sure you tell your mates that we're on every week talking AFL Draftstars. So thank you very much, Tom. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you.